If there's one thing that you can say about the right wing in pretty much any country going, it is very, very clear, especially this week, that, well, there's no two ways to put it, that the right just hates education in general. Why? Well, two reasons, really. First of all, people who are more educated aren't likely to support the Tories. That's just straight up easy because more educated people tend to keep abreast of politics. They tend to do more reading around the subject, so they tend to sort of, how shall we say, challenge their betters, so to say. And this just doesn't sit well with the Tories completely at all. So of course we have to challenge the have to challenge these deadly teachers teaching quote leftist ideas. We've already seen this week that teaching anti-capitalism. I can tell you, as pretty much as a student, I do not remember anyone teaching me anti-capitalism as a school student. And now my my school days may be somewhat long behind me. I'm only 30, but I don't remember any teacher slapping on the board just saying, this, children, is anti-capitalism and we're going to learn just how to defeat those evil capitalists and how one day you're going to rise up and eat the rich. I don't remember that being in my curriculum, even at university. I generally can't think of anything in my course being taught that. But this is one of the great fantasies about for the right wing tend to have, of where does all this leftist nonsense come from? Oh, it must come from the education. It's the teachers. Clearly, they are one teaching the youth to oppose us. but, and we get even sillier today because we have this came from the Independent, and it was Esther McVey who was it was a Tory minister. I don't know if she was. Did she have something to do with the education? I can't remember now, but she was like a Tory minister for quite some time. But you're about to see why this just feeds into the complete right-wing paranoia. So, teachers are pushing left-wing views in classrooms and are putting off working-class pupils off school with ideas at odds with their family beliefs, a former Conservative minister has claimed. Well, okay, Esther McVey, you've made the claim. So what left-wing views are teachers pushing, first of all, and why is it at odds with their, quote, family beliefs? So, first of all, there are really two questions being asked here, but we'll probably get into them later in the article, but those are really the two questions. So Tory MP Esther McVey, the ex-Work and Pension Secretary, suggested at a panel event that Britain's pupils were being indoctrinated in schools. So actually no evidence to back this up, just Britain's pupils are being indoctrinated. So there's no evidence to back up this claim. She said, I would say for a long period of time, I would have never known what my teacher thought politically or in any other way. They wouldn't have tried to indoctrinate me. Now, I know Esther McVey's probably older than me, but I don't remember any teachers indoctrinating me because it just doesn't happen. And she goes on to say, I'm now hearing that people aren't teaching you what they need to. They're overtly indoctrinating you. It's gone political. People are saying it has gone to the left. They're forcing ideas on you. Well, first of all, who are these people who are saying it? I've certainly never seen anyone come forward and say this. I've never seen any parents of teachers saying, Johnny came home to me today and decided to, stage a sit-in protest because he wanted more pocket money because of, the anti-capitalist beliefs. It just doesn't happen. It's just ridiculous that this is the right wing for you. Overtly indoctrinating you. What are they saying? Do you have any evidence to back this up? What, are they? It just doesn't happen. So Miss McVey told the Blue Collar Conservative Conference in Mansfield, I think it needs to be removed from the whole education system. What? And this does raise some very serious concerns, because what do they mean by this of quote, removing anti-capitalist stuff? Does this mean removing stuff, especially if you were to learn, especially about the Industrial Revolution, learning about labour unions and the rise of them and the impact that they had on British society and culture, is quite an important thing to learn, especially from the historical worldview of learning stuff about the Industrial Revolution. And once again, she's not exactly saying what these actually are. And she continues to say it's a left learning bias or an educational bias in the whole of the educational platform. What exact bias, again, are you talking about? This is just typical right-wing ridiculousness of just, hey, this is what you need to learn, and it's just this reaction of these are where these evil ideas are being implanted, and we can't have the seeds of socialism being planted, so to say, in the minds of our kids. But it's not happening. It's just an invented boogeyman. The Tory MP for Tatton also suggested that white working class lads were particularly turned off by ideas at odds with their family beliefs on Brexit. I've never, ever heard of a teacher teaching about this or talking about this in class. Please show your evidence at the door, because I think the teacher needs to see you after class on this. The reason I bring this up, when we talk about white working class lads maybe being discouraged, I'm thinking about what was the vote in Mansfield? What was the vote in Ashfield? It was a very big Brexit vote, Miss McVey told the audience. I think I'm talking to myself. Are people thinking, why do I want to be engaged in a classroom if somebody doesn't think like me, doesn't vote like me, and what they're telling me, and what is it I'm questioning my belief or my family's beliefs? Again, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the right wing love to believe that education has somehow been politicized. It really, really hasn't. And again, they're not really saying what's going on here. I mean, she's talking about white working class lads being, quote, disengaged with education. That's got nothing to do with, a teacher, quote, being political. There's no evidence to suggest that is the case. It's probably more for the case that these white working class lads are from a lower working class background. And we know from studies, because this is something that is studied extensively, that most working class backgrounds don't value education more than sort of middle to upper class backgrounds do. And that's nothing against these people. It's just that things like reading to children just isn't done, or encouraging them to do their homework. There's no encouragement to do learning outside, which does have a big effect on kids, and thus they get disengaged. And, this can also be, teachers maybe just don't have enough help in the classroom because class sizes are too big. If this is a large working class area and that they're having problems engaging students, that normally tends to be the case. I have a couple of friends who are teachers. They will openly tell you that's the case sometimes. Especially one who works at a school that is sort of in a very middle class to upper case class area where kids will come to school with pencil cases and all the equipment they need, and parents are actively engaged in their kids' education versus the predominantly working class school my other friend works, who kids don't turn up with full sets of pencil cases, protractors, equipment, and the school has to provide that. Means that it's an actual drain on their budget. And then you get the case of that their parents just aren't interested in their child's education. That's a sad thing, but unfortunately, I can tell you from first-hand experience that does unfortunately tend to be the case. And that's not an educational issue. That's almost a societal issue where we need to get not only just the students once again re-engaged with their education, but parents engaged with their children's education as well, because there is a massive difference between learning standards. Because again, take those two schools. My friend who works at the middle class upper area manager schools is constantly harangued by parents asking how they can help their kids learn better, or asking what their child is up to. Whereas if the other one tries to engage the parents, they're just not interested because they don't have the time, because they're at their jobs most of the time and they can't engage with their children as much. There are bigger societal issues to this. We can and again, we're getting massively off topic here, but just for those topics, you can see just how big this topic really is. And Esther McVey boiling it down to there must be, quote, a left-wing bias in education is just complete nonsense. So anyway, she continued. She added, and I think that's why I think you need to remove all that from the classroom. In a later question and answer session at the conference, Education Secretary Gavin Williamson said the political impartiality needed to be respected in the classroom. Once again, I'd ask Mr. Williamson, can he provide any examples of political impartiality being done in the classroom? Mr. Williamson, who was not asked about the current COVID-19 cases spike in the UK at UK universities in a pre-recorded interview with Mrs. McVey, said that we've got to ensure there is a political impartiality right across the spectrum. Educational organisations are state-funded. You've got to ensure that you don't have that impartiality, and that you've got to make sure that there is a broad spectrum of views. I've spoken about, and I'm sure you've spoken about it, I've spoken about it, of the importance of freedom of speech, of not making sure that people aren't no-platformed. So, here's the thing. You may have seen this or not, but the Conservatives are now talking about pushing local history. Well, okay, especially in and around my area, there is a massive local history element of the miners' strike. Are you allowed to talk about the miners' strike then? Because, in an area of important, local history, and that is very much a political issue, you can't really cut it. Either way, you've got to talk about the politics of it at some point. It just goes to show you that really these guys, and Gavin Williamson, who has never ever engaged in teaching in any way, shape or form. Neither has Esther McVey. Have no idea what they're talking about. So the cabinet minister said that the idea of no platforming mainstream politicians shouldn't be tolerated in higher education, calling the decision by an Oxford University Society in March to cancel a talk by former Home Secretary Amber Rudd as crazy. That isn't education. That's not on that Oxford University's curriculum. That was a talk by a society that is affiliated with the university but has nothing to do with the educational side. If that society chose to cancel that talk, that is entirely up to them. This is not an educational issue. If Amber Rudd still wanted to host that talk and the society said, okay, this talk is still going to go ahead, if you want to go to it, there it is. There's nothing stopping that talk from happening. But once again, this is the whole right-wing nonsense of people being, quote, no platformed and whatnot, when they really haven't. It was up to that, student society. But that's entirely up to them. So, once again, this is just absolutely crazy, but you've got to be really careful of this, because this could have massive, this could basically stop stuff like the miners' strike, which, again, the Gavin Williamson said that he wants to promote more local history being talked about. Here's the thing. Miners' strike, massive part of, especially in the north, local history. How much can or cannot they talk about that? It's just, beyond the point. But, education is education. And yes, there are very often, different viewpoints when it comes to education. But there is the academic consensus of what should and shouldn't be taught. But when you go to university, especially at university, you are massively encouraged to go and do your own research. That was what happened when I was at university. No one was stopping me going out and reading books or, going to lectures or whatever that took. Even if I wanted to go to see a talk or lecture that was outside of the university, no one was stopping me or policing me from it. So once again, this is just a complete right-wing fantasy. But there you go. So please do like and share this video. It does help out the channel massively. And if you'd like below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link should you like to support the channel in that way. So as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you all next time.